What's going on, guys? It's Ben with liftedimports.com, and today I wanted to talk to you about suspension lifts and some common myths that I have heard, and I've seen a lot of people talking about this lately. But people will talk about spacer lifts as though they're the wrong way to lift a Subaru, like, oh, spacer lifts are the cheap way to do it, the garbage way to do it, they don't work good, and it does, all these different things. So this would be an example of a lift spacer for a Subaru. These actually go on the suspension. So these technically are a suspension lift, if we're being honest. A lot of people, when they think about spacer lifts, they're thinking in the 4x4 sense of the word, which is a body lift. And body lifts kind of are a dopey way to lift your 4x4 because there's better options. But for a Subaru, a spacer lift is 100% just fine. Nothing wrong with them. And one of the things that I hear people say is, well, yeah, but I want more suspension travel. Well, I'm here because I want to show you something that I think will put a lot of you guys at ease if you're considering getting a lift, but you don't want to do it without a suspension lift and you can't really afford a suspension lift. I want to debunk that idea that if you get aftermarket coilovers or longer struts and springs, that you're going to somehow have a more capable vehicle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the wheel off my Forester real quick, and I'm going to show you kind of what the suspension components look like in these vehicles and how they actually are limiting as to how much suspension travel you can have. It's not really the shocks or the coilovers that are going to be the limiting factor of how much wheel or suspension travel you're going to have. It's actually the control arms and your CV axles, even your tie rods. So your tie rods are going to create a limiting amount of up and down travel that your suspension can do. So I'm going to show that to you because I think it's a little bit easier if you see it. Now I'm gonna get us a closer look here, but just know in advance there's a ton of rust going on here because I haven't done any rust mitigation this year, and I need to, so don't be mad at me about that. We're gonna get that fixed soon. All right, so here we go, and I don't know if you can see this, but here's the control arm, and this is obviously this is an older Subaru. But what your Subaru is probably going to have a slightly different suspension setup. But if you look right here, this is my control arm, and what this is designed to do is to basically facilitate the up and down travel of the hub and just the whole suspension assembly. And if you'll notice, right here is my limiting factor. You see that? It's like right there. Now, if you have a newer Subaru, you're going to have a slightly different setup. You're going to have a little bit of a different control arm style. But just to give you an idea that this is kind of how this stuff works, it's very similar even on the newer Subarus. But here's the other side of the control arm. And here it is. It's almost touching part of the subframe, basically. I can't remember what this particular piece is called, but that is where a majority of the sticking point is going to be. Okay, so this is actually called the front subframe cross member. I guess that's what they call it. This is going to block you from being able to get more suspension travel, even if you have a ton of suspension travel in your coilovers or your shocks. Now, that's not the only thing that's going to limit your suspension travel. Your CV axles right here, they have a limited range that they can angle to, right? So there's basically a point to where they can no longer flex up or down, and I'm real close to that point at this full droop position. And then you've got your tie rods. Your tie rods have a limited amount of articulation where the ball goes into the socket and it allows for up and down articulation, that's limited as well. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a visual. I know my suspension's really gross looking right now, but that's beside the point. You're definitely limited to the amount of suspension travel that you have by more than just your shocks. So if you want more suspension travel, you're going to have to get custom front subframe, or you're going to have to modify your existing front subframe. You're going to have to get expensive Porsche axle conversion kits, which are, I think they start at like $2,000 or $3,000. Getting a custom front subframe, that's not going to be cheap. Then you're going to have to figure out your tie rod ends. Those are going to have to be modified or upgraded. I don't even know how you would do it. And then your long travel coilovers, those are also going to cost you anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. So real quick, it's looking like maybe buying a cheap beater Jeep for rock crawling is going to be a better option than thinking, oh, look at me, I'm just going to get long travel coilovers. So I know this kind of sounds like a rude video, sounds like I'm being a butthead, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of you are missing out on a lot of fun by just getting whatever lift it is that you can afford and just running with it. And the longer you let yourself believe that, oh, a spacer lift is the wrong way to do it, the longer you miss out on just getting out on the trails and having a good time. Because I've been running spacer lifts for 10 years. I love them. There's a couple reasons why I love them. I've talked about this a lot, but spacer lifts are super easy to install. You don't have to maintain them. They are durable. I mean, as long as you get a good spacer lift, I'm telling you, I've beat the heck out of my cars. I've had zero problems running a good steel spacer lift. There's a lot of good options out there. I personally run the Anderson Design and Fabrication lifts, but it's up to you as to what you like. And I like being able to retain as much of the OEM suspension as I can, because it's very easy to replace if I break something. I don't have to wait, a week minimum just to get another part in, which means my car is stuck up on jack stands for a whole week while I'm waiting for the new parts to get there, even if they're sent to me for free via a warranty claim. It's still a hassle, still means my car is going to be down and I'm going to have to figure out a way to get to and from work. The other thing that I like is the fact that it doesn't add any complication to my build. If you're able to retain OEM components where it's possible, your life's going to be so much easier. You're not going to have to sort out stupid little issues. And the OEM suspension, in my opinion, is pretty comfortable. So when you get off-road and you hit these washboard roads or whatever it is that's bumpy, you're not dealing with this real stiff spring rate that's just going to beat you half to death once you leave the pavement. So that was just a quick visual that I wanted to share with you, just a quick rundown of why this myth of, oh, I'm going to get more suspension travel is not quite true. I just wanted to share that with you. Hopefully it helps you out, gives you an idea of what this is actually going to look like. And I do want to say, I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy a suspension lift. There are situations where it is a good idea, and I've talked about this before, but if you want to run stiffer springs on your Subaru because you daily drive it a lot more than you don't, like if you are almost exclusively going off-road, you're probably not going to want an aftermarket suspension that's stiffer. But if you're daily driving and on-road handling is very important to you in a lifted vehicle, an aftermarket suspension can help stiffen up the ride so that you reduce body roll, so the car still handles pretty tight. And you may also be somebody that carries a bunch of gear on your Subaru for camping, overlanding, hiking, skiing, whatever it is. You may need a stiffer spring rate to help support the suspension when you're loaded down. And you can definitely do that with a suspension lift. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you strictly are telling yourself, I'm going to wait to buy a lift kit until I can get a suspension lift because I want more suspension travel, it's not really that simple, and it's, in all reality, going to be a waste of money. If that's your ultimate goal, you're not going to get it, and it's just going to be a waste. And your car's really just going to be as capable as it would have been otherwise. I'm telling you guys, I've been out on trails with people who are running $3,000, coilover systems that are supposedly long travel, and they're just as capable, if not less, Like, I mean, I'm telling you, if you focus your energy on getting out on the trails with a good tire that can handle aggressive obstacles and things like that, and you learn how to pick your line choices correctly, that's going to give you way more capability out on the road than any aftermarket suspension is really going to do for you. If I burst your bubble or something and you're mad about it, I'm sorry. I was kind of in this same mode of thinking not long ago. I wanted to upgrade to a real suspension lift, but then, I was talking to a couple people who kind of helped it click for me, like, that doesn't make any sense. Let me know in the comments what kind of Subaru you're driving, what sort of mods you've got on it, and then let me know what your next mod is going to be. Till next time, I'll see you guys out on the trail, and hope you have a great day.